0 minus 3 minutes, 48 seconds, and counting.
Damn it! The shuttle hatch is jammed! Have it on
Negative,
your
Captain.
truck, come on!
Shuttle 1 hatch is operative.
Get inside!
You weren't leaving without me.
Come on, come on!
Not without me.
0 minus 2 minutes, 7 seconds, and counting.
Way back into the distant past, when Pete was like 15, he joined a mail-in movie club, 11 days for pennies. And now cut to 2025, the movie club caught on to Pete's lie, and now they want to punish him, so they trapped him in a room with a bunch of movie tapes. Pete didn't want to pay for the movies he got in the 90s. He'll have to watch random horror tapes and tell us about gore and probably some rape. Now keep in mind, Pete didn't pick. They use random numbers and a long list. He's got to get through every movie, one each day for the time we can't foresee. Helpful snowman roll call. Anxiety. Grouchiness, entropy, snow. If you're wondering why he did this song and other FAQ facts, just shut up and listen to this show, or fuck it, take a nice nap. It's Helpful Snowman Podoween 2025.
Okay, everyone, today's film, Ravager. Yeah, what would Halloween be without a movie about a virus in space? At least, actually, I thought this was a space movie until I think maybe 3/4 of the way through. It turns out what I thought was a spaceship is just a cargo ship on Earth, I think. So I was wrong about that. But it's confusing because the sets are definitely left over from a space movie, right? They have the spaceship where most of this takes place has space doors, by which I mean it's like techno pocket doors with little windows in them so you can see the horrors happening on the other side. Little space door windows seem wildly impractical, but we need them to watch bodies melting and so on. Like I wonder if they're designing spaceships somewhere and they're like, well, yeah, it needs to have a little window. And someone's like, why? And it's like, well, how else are you going to see, the melterium happening over on the other side of the door? How else are you going to see someone getting his brain exploded by an alien that has a little mouth that comes out of its big mouth? What the fuck, man? What's wrong with you? Of course we need this. So, I thought it was space because it was a spaceship, and also because it's like they're ferrying, I don't know, like 6 people somewhere, and it just seems very spaceshipy. And also it seems like they're going on a very long journey. So I was like, well, it's clearly the near-ish future. And it's like, well, how long could it possibly take to go, what would be the longest flight you could take today? And certainly this seems like a ship that could go faster than, I don't know, Dreamliner or whatever. Anyway, Ravager is about a ragtag bunch of people who get on this ship, and all for their own rag and tag reasons. We have the captain, who's like a hot dog pilot who did something dumb in the past, which maybe saved lives and cost a company money, or maybe it was like the opposite. He did something hot dogging and then killed a bunch of people. I don't actually know. I can't remember. And I didn't really care. So, I mean, he's either a Sully Sullenberger or he's like a buffoon. And either way, he did something that pissed off someone somehow. We have a lady captain who maybe had a love affair with the man captain in the past. They're acquainted, but I'm not sure if the implication is that they were lovers or just, flight partners. I can never tell. I get on an airplane, I see the captain and the first mate or whatever. I mean, they're called first mate, for God's sake. Actually, they're called the co-pilot, aren't they? But, you know, I would say most marriages have a pilot and a co-pilot. You know, I'm firmly in the co-pilot role, marriage-wise. I'm like, what is the ring we should get? All right, fair enough. She's also, Lady Captain's kind of a Mary Sue of the type I would write, because, like, if I wrote myself into a movie, I'd be the hottest person in the movie by far, but also competent. But then I'd kind of forget to write any other stuff for me to do other than, you know, the obvious that I'm hot and competent. So, you know, that's kind of, it's a little bit blank slatey. We have other guy who is he's the Spock, I guess, who's on the bridge, who's always doing stuff on like a see-through whiteboard type of thing. So, which is a strong indicator we're in the future, because every sort of panel is just a see-through plexiglass thing as opposed to being opaque, which doesn't really make sense, because I'm like, I don't know, if I was trying to look at a map, but then I could see the entire room behind me in the background, that would be pretty fucking annoying. But, you know, whatever. That's how we know it's futuristic. Also, it makes sense for movies, right? Because then I can see the person working at the map, and they can be filmed from the front. I can see their face while they're working on the map. So, you know, it's probably just some movie bullshit. Anyway, he does equations and stuff that make the ship go or something. I'm not a mathematician, let alone a space mathematician, let alone a Earth ship mathematician who, you know, which looks like a spaceship, but it's not mathematician. One of the passengers is like a disgraced doctor who's addicted to drugs of some kind, which I was thinking of space drugs as the whole movie, but I guess they're not. So what the hell? Let's call it Space Horse. We've got a lady who turns out is what they call a spare, which is a human grown to give up their organs to, you know, humans who I guess need an organ transplant or something, which like makes sense. You know, that's a sci-fi I could see turning into a horror plot, but it doesn't really play heavily into the movie or really at all. It does kind of make Prince Harry seem like an asshole for calling himself a spare in the title of his memoir, though. Like, I mean, he wasn't next in line to be the goddamn king of England, but who is? You know what I mean? It's like, well, this lady's a spare in that her literal organs, her life is a spare. And it's like, I mean, you just had to live a, I guess, downgraded life, but which also seemed pretty freewheeling. You know what I mean? It's like, there's got to be 100 dudes in America who were the second son of a guy who owns a garage door repair business who aren't going to inherit that business. And it's not like, well, they still lived like a king. I mean, anyway, then we have a bunch of other people on the ship. It's not really important who they are. They're just like guys with, you know, spiky 90s haircuts who are, I don't know, like compulsive gamblers or some shit like that. The spaceship that's not in space crashes for some reason. And for some reason, nobody from the airports or whatever knows where this ship is, which this isn't also why I thought they were in space, I guess, because I was like, yeah, I mean, maybe they crash landed on some uninhabited planet or something. But it's like, well, they just crash landed somewhere on Earth, which I would be like, I mean, how hard could that be to find them? But whatever, no one's coming to their rescue. And for some reason, the raw materials they need to fix the ship are just some weird element that's laying around where they are. So they leave the ship to get some of it, and then one of them falls into a hidden bunker full of canisters that say Ravager on them, which, you know, of course I stood and clapped because the name of the movie was in the movie. We did see this bunker in sort of vague, blurry, you know, cutaways during the opening credits, and guys in biohazard suits handling canisters. And so then when this guy falls into the bunker with the canisters, we're like, oh, we've seen this before. We have no idea, like, why, but we've seen it before. Then through machinations, the Spock guy who fell into the bunker gets cut, and then some Ravager gets inside him, and he becomes a sort of rage zombie with blisters who's, like, hell-bent on infecting other people. It's a little bit The Thing. But it's confusing, right? because he's like a zombie or like the Thing. But like the doctor gets some of this Ravager and they do this computer simulation that's a lot like the one from The Thing with just a slightly better graphics, I guess, but which also makes them not as good of graphics. Same idea. And the doctor, who seems to be a doctor, probably got his PhD in exposition, explains that Ravager takes over one's body. The previous body owner is gone, and then Ravager burns out its host and has to find a new one. But like it's confusing because the Spock character later on in the movie has been ravaged by Ravager, and he's trying to do some kind of override on the ship. And he struggles to remember his override code, but like he remembers it, and which indicates that he's not totally gone or something. You know what I mean? It's like, well, if Ravager is completely controlling him, how would Ravager even know what an override code is, let alone have the awareness to understand, like, if I can make this spaceship take off and go into space or whatever so that I can get somewhere else and infect someone else, that would be good for me. You know what I mean? Does a virus know that there's more people around? Does a virus know anything? Like, how would a virus know even that there is an override code? What would it even know to you know what I mean? It's like most movies with zombies or other evil Ravager type things kind of make them space zombies that are then just sort of animals. But this is like a little bit more in the maybe Event Horizon realm, where it's like, well, it seems like he still knows stuff, but he still knows how to operate a space door, I guess. Anyway, I don't know, maybe a virus that knew stuff. A sentient virus. Is that spooky? Is that a horror movie? So Spock runs around and infects some people, and we have a classic horror action moment where the captain is like, you guys go on without me, and it seems totally unnecessary. You know what I mean? They're trying to get to an escape pod, and he's like, you two go, I'll stay here and hold them off. And, you know, you're like, why can't the other people be like, nah, I don't think we need to do that. Like, we fought off this guy 10 different ways already. So, like, let's just do one of those tactics again, and then you don't have to die. But the two chicks, the lady captain and the spare, escape into some sort of escape pod ship, which does beg the question of why, when the ship crashed, they didn't just get in one of those in the first place and take the fuck off, but whatever. And also, okay, they keep saying there's not enough oxygen in the escape pod. There's only enough oxygen for two people. And I'm like, oxygen? They're on Earth. There's oxygen. They don't need oxygen. You know, when they go outside the ship, they aren't wearing like breathing or spacesuits or something. I'm kind of suspicious that it's not just me that was confused about this. I'm suspicious that the people who made the movie were suspicious about or were confused about whether or not this was happening in space. Because I was like, you don't get on a passenger plane and they're like, we have enough oxygen, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's not how that works. Anyway, but like, fucking whatever. You know what I mean? I'm deep enough into this punishment from Columbia House that Ravager isn't a good movie, but it's a movie. Like, it meets and pretty easily exceeds the minimum criteria of movie-ness, and that's mostly good enough for me at this point. Also, like, the lead is, it's got real people in it, you know what I mean? Like, the lead is this babe who I didn't realize played the babe in Hard Target, and also the babe in the show Witchblade. And the male lead is also kind of a babe who I thought was maybe an elder actor who'd gotten a bunch of work done because he looked weird or puffy or something. But then I saw he's in the classic of terrible movies, Dungeons and Dragons from the 90s. He's the bad guy. And he doesn't appear to have had work done then. So either he was going through maybe an alcohol-soaked puffy phase, or it's entirely likely the VHS copy of this I was watching was of such low quality that it just sort of smoothed and blurred over his chiseled features. Maybe I'm used to seeing that effect happen in shows or movies when they're trying to hide someone's age, but in his case, they weren't actually trying to hide his age, but they were using the same visual style of age hiding. Anyway, that's what I'm going to tell anyone who ever claims I look fat. I'll just be like, you're looking at me with your VHS quality eyes, asshole. I'm going to rate Ravager by placing it in the time slot. I think it should play on TNT over the weekend. Like Friday and Saturday night would obviously be the best prime spots, right? And like, I don't know, Sunday at 10 a.m. is kind of a crap spot. So I'd probably put this at like 3 in the afternoon on Saturday. Like we'll show a big feature or a pretty good movie right after it, and then we'll use Ravager as the lead-in. Like, because it's not amazing, but especially if you only caught the last 20 minutes while you're popping that popcorn, you'll have a pretty decent time with it.
It's Hopeful Snowman Podoween 2025.